Question number 2, Melissa Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance and asks, how is the government's program of fiscal management helping keep interest rates lower for longer?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, government spending is firmly under control. Core Crown expenditure has fallen from 34.1% of GDP in 2008-9 and is expected to drop to 30% of GDP next year. We have stuck to a $1 billion allowance in budget 2015, but we're able to spend $1.5 billion per year on new initiatives because we've identified around $500 million in savings and reprioritisation each year. We have come from an $18.4 billion deficit 4 years ago to see steadily rising surpluses into the future. As the Reserve Bank has noted, that fiscal restraint is one of the drivers of current low inflation, which helps keep interest rates lower for longer.
Supplementary.
Talking about parallel universes.
Supplementary question, Melissa Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister. How does low inflation and lower interest rates help New Zealand families to get ahead?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, in a low inflation environment, interest rates stay lower for longer. Mortgage rates are low, particularly when compared with floating rates, which reached almost 11% in 2008. This means a family with a mortgage of $300,000 would be around $240 a week better off due to lower mortgage costs. And low cost of living increases, currently just 0.1% over the last year, mean any pay increases go further. Average annual wages have increased by $5,700 in the last 4 years. Treasury forecasts they'll rise a further $7,000 to around $63,000 a year by mid-2019. So if you take the 8-year period as a whole, the average wage is expected to rise by almost $13,000 or over 25%, while low inflation of around 15% over the same 8-year period means that New Zealand householders and families are better off.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Melissa Lee.
How do lower interest rates support New Zealand businesses?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, low interest rates and solid economic growth create stronger business investment. Annual business investment increased by 13% over the last 2 years. That's 13%, Mr. Speaker, to record highs, and is expected to increase by a further 15% by mid-2018. It's only when businesses invest another dollar or hire another person that we see economic growth, more jobs and higher wages. That is why this government is focused on getting the conditions right to encourage businesses to grow.
Order. Supplementary question, Melissa Lee.
To the Minister, what reports has he received on the outlook for New Zealand businesses?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, yesterday the ANZ released its Business Outlook survey. This showed business confidence declining from recent highs. There are many challenges for business, and the global outlook, it has to be said, remains uncertain. However, employment intentions remain positive, with a net 15% of businesses intending to hire new people. A net 21% of survey respondents report positive residential investment intentions, while commercial construction intentions lifted to 32%. The ANZ noted long-term price trends favour New Zealand's exports, interest rate and exchange rate buffers, and strong net migration as New Zealanders come home or do not leave, which all moderate economic headwinds.
Supplementary. A supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
Is he concerned that the Reserve Bank's statement of intent highlights that population growth, low mortgage interest rates and increased investor participation are creating a significant risk in the Auckland housing market? And if so, why has his government failed to make a dent in any of the supply and demand factors in the housing market that mean lowering interest rates are simply adding more fuel to the Auckland housing market?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, I'm not sure I'd be running the line that low interest rates were bad, but, Mr. Speaker, the member is simply wrong, because we now have, officially this week, the highest rate of house consenting and therefore construction in Auckland in a decade. In a decade, Mr. Speaker, since 2000. No, not reading. I am reading Mr Smith's press releases, but it's actually Statistics New Zealand's survey of consenting of housing in Auckland is the highest in a decade, Mr Speaker, and Mr Twyford should chew that up and swallow it.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
Is it not the case that had his government acted to prevent the Auckland housing crisis sooner, the Reserve Bank would not have had to lift interest rates in the first place last year or introduce loan-to-value ratio restrictions, punishing home buyers all over New Zealand for this government's failure to do anything about the Auckland housing crisis?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, the difficulty was we didn't get elected till 2008. And in the previous 8 or 9 years prior to that, after the metropolitan urban limit was set up in Auckland, the previous government twiddled its thumbs for 8 years and did absolutely nothing, and in fact waved through their fellow travellers like Mike Lee and so on and said that they could actually continue to restrict housing in Auckland. This government has moved very significantly, and the highest House consenting in a decade, Mr Twyford. Read my lips.
Question number 3. Order. Calling Materia Ture, question number 3.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou.